it just wouldn't be a Saturday in my neighborhood without an ice cream truck playing Turkey in the Straw. What is up, guys? Welcome back. Today's gonna be a very casual video. We're gonna be talking about my cruelty-free status and the plan for my channel going forward. And we do this at the end of the year every year, I feel like. We did it at the end of Cleaner Chain 2019. And this year we're just kind of collecting our thoughts on everything 2020 hath been thus far and what the future looks like for my channel. That sounds really ominous and bleak. I don't want it to sound like that. So I'm gonna be doing my makeup. We're gonna be chatting mostly about kind of the conversations that we've been having over on my Instagram. If you're not following me on Instagram, I know my feed is not that exciting, but my stories are a blast and they're a lot of fun. It's how I get feedback from you guys. I don't have a Patreon or anything like that. So it is really open, equal opportunity in terms of input when I ask questions on my stories and stuff. So I absolutely invite you guys to come and follow me. We are getting really close to 10,000 and I would love to have some swipe up links for you guys in the new year. But anyway, yeah, I'm gonna be doing my makeup. We're gonna be talking about that kind of stuff. So I'm gonna move on. We're just gonna get started. Let's dip into my, I don't know what you would call this. This has just been my kind of downstairs makeup bag lately of all the things that I love. And also Booty Blender, I'm sorry, they sent me merch. I should pronounce it properly. Beauty Blender sent me merch. They sent me 2 concealers, a little soap thing, and 2 brand new beauty blenders. I haven't used a beauty blender on my channel in ages. And so I'm very, very excited to be using that today as well as the new concealer. And I've been really liking the concealer. I got it after I had already filmed my end of year favorites and everything. So anyway, so all year, or at least since like the middle of the year, there have been all these rumblings about China lifting their animal testing laws because they had both post-market, we'll get to that, but also pre-market required testing for anything coming in from outside the country. That's why some of those brands that we talked about in 2 videos ago, I guess it was, when we talked about First Aid Beauty and Wet n Wild and stuff like that, the way that they're circumventing that situation is by actually producing the makeup that they're selling in China inside China. They're producing it there so it doesn't have to go through any of the mandatory import animal testing safety stuff. So that's why a lot of people, including myself, consider it might as well be cruelty-free. It might ruffle some feathers, but that's just how I feel. And that was after reading an article on My Beauty Bunny about it. All of those rumblings have meant that all the people who are cruelty-free are just waiting with bated breath, being like, well, is everything gonna be cruelty-free now? Can I go back to using MAC, you know? And speaking specifically for myself, I will say that the temptation definitely exists. I think this is, I'm not sure if this is intentional, but it looks like their applicator is actually meant to look kind of like a beauty blender. I've definitely experienced a little bit of premature excitement, being like, oh my gosh, am I gonna get to like expand my horizons and make everything really inclusive on my channel as far as the other brands that I haven't been able to include, yada, yada, yada. By the way, this is the shade Light Peach. So I started doing some research and Google is usually your friend. There are so many times where I see comments either on my channel or other people's channels where I'm like, man, the answer to that question is just a Google away. I am not necessarily the person who's gonna give you the best answer on that, but there are other questions that are just best when they're crowdsourced, and that was what the case was with this cruelty-free status thing, because I genuinely couldn't get a straight answer from any of the blogs or any of the things that I was getting in my Google search results. A lot of them were outdated, a lot of them were vague, and a lot of them just repeated the same things. I ended up taking it to my stories and asking you guys like what your opinion was of what was going on, and if anybody knew what the heck was going on, and what was the most important thing to you as a shopper, basically. Most of the people that I talked to were talking about the value system that surrounded how they go about shopping for makeup. And a lot of them sort of fly in each other's faces, right? We always talk about mindful beauty on my channel, and I do always try to be mindful about why I consider a product valuable to review on my channel. And that's why I feel like I do review a lot of mainstream stuff, but I also review a lot of brands that are just kind of near and dear to my heart for different reasons having to do with the ethics of the company and things like that. So All that to say, you guys all had some really, really valuable insight. Some people were like, I really value things being affordable. I value non-toxic. We're not talking about non-toxic anymore. That's just kind of like a misnomer in clean, and it really rubs a lot of people the wrong way because like it just doesn't really mean anything. It was almost like a branding term developed by the clean beauty movement in order to like vilify other products, and that's why I do not use that word. It honestly, like non-toxic seems to also mean contains lots of essential oils in my experience. That's a whole can of worms that we basically unpacked in 2019. Of course, I get on a roll talking and then my battery dies. Anyway, look at that concealer. It's actually really beautiful. We're not even gonna be powdering it today, so I love the way that that went on. It is very high coverage. I like it very, very much. Like good color match as well. There were concerns about ethics, ingredients, price, sustainability, cruelty-free, and then a lot of people being like, I'm completely overwhelmed. And I was like, I really feel you on the being completely overwhelmed thing. And I also tried to clarify my stance in response to those answers in my actual stories. Like I posted some of the answers to my prompt and then responded to them in my stories. And to summarize that, it was like, okay, if you want to talk about something being sustainable and also affordable, they almost never completely coexist. There are just like things that tend to fly in the face of one another. Like, for example, inclusivity is something that is very important to me on my channel, and I didn't realize really until I did some digging and asked a lot of you guys about it this year that cruelty-free, but clean especially, but cruelty-free too, tends to be a little bit uninclusive, and it's like the really large shade ranges in the past have mostly been at the drugstore or in really developed lines, kind of like older school lines that would be sold at like Nordstrom or something like that, you know, on the higher end, like an Estee Lauder or something like that, and they're not cruelty free. To be clear, and I am being like all over the place here, but I feel like I'm kind of recapping in a lot of ways. A lot of the brands that are considered cruelty brands that are, you know, selling in mainland China were there before cruelty-free was a thing. And so they have actively, since a lot of other countries have made it a priority to stop animal testing instead of pulling out of the markets in China, which I kind of don't blame them for not pulling out of the markets in China. That would be majorly disruptive to these giant companies that have a lot of stakeholders. It's not just an ethics thing, it's like an employment thing. You know, there's millions of people probably relying on those, you know, whatever. My point is, those people have been working with China to try and change their laws for, you know, however many years since cruelty-free became a thing. So that said, you know, I totally understand why plenty of people have never made the leap, quote unquote, to being cruelty-free, and why those brands specifically have kind of, you know, done the work that they've tried to behind the scenes, but they have never also, like the brands themselves have never, quote unquote, made the leap, even though smaller parts of the brands have. I don't know who owns CoverGirl, but like CoverGirl went cruelty-free, for example, things like that. There are other brands like a NARS, for example, that is just like, oh, I know what cruelty-free is, but I don't care, and I'm gonna go sell in China anyway, and kind of made no real attempt one way or the other. This is my understanding. I could be totally wrong, and I don't want to make them sound like a bunch of jerks, but that was my understanding of like the difference between the two. They were not already in China when the laws changed. So this whole rumbling, right, around the cruelty-free thing was what made me want to restart the conversation on my channel, because if you guys recall in my regrets video, I said something to the effect of, well, doesn't that mean that everybody's cruelty-free now? I'm gonna go ahead and spoil it for you. No. I'll explain more in depth, but the answer is no. And that just made me sad. It genuinely did make me sad. But I did want to really like dig around and try and find some answers. So the main things that I gleaned from you guys' responses, and of course I didn't post all the responses, but I did read all of the responses, were that a lot of my audience really cares about the mindfulness, whether it be, you know, consciousness of the environment, or consciousness of animals, or consciousness of inclusivity and shade ranges and things like that, or price and availability. And you know, I get so spoiled in the US thinking that everybody has access to everything, and it's just not the case. So that's also something that I wanted to be, quote unquote, mindful of as we talk about mindful beauty on my channel, kind of thing. So a lot of people were like, who cares? Just, and not who cares, like I don't want to have this conversation because why would you respond? But more like, who cares? You know, you can't please everybody. This is all a one big mess, and you should do what you want to do, basically. And of all of the things that I was hearing, the biggest thing that I was taking away from it and all of the busy, static, crazy chaos things flying around was my Aries brain always says, absorb it and then take a step back because there is always an elegant solution, okay? I am not one of those people. You guys will never hear me on my channel being like, and this is no shade on anybody else, this is just not my personality. I'm never going to set budgets. I'm never going to set goals. Project Pan is gonna be fun, but I'm not gonna like kill myself over it or anything. It's just kind of something that I think would be fun to just switch it up and see how long it takes me to go through something. But I am just not a semantics person. I don't like getting in the weeds. It's not that I don't like that idea. It's not that I think those people are wrong. It's just that I feel boxed in and I get increasingly, I feel like I'm in a smaller and smaller box. And that's how I felt at the end of 2019. So that kind of elegant solution mentality, it gives me a little bit of peace of mind taking all this information in and being like, well, okay, we're just going to absorb it all. We're going to do as much research as possible. I'm gonna talk to some people that I know, and then we're gonna come up with an elegant solution. This is not going to be something that's like hugely complicated. We're gonna use some Fenty creams today, almost just to prove a point, because actually another thing that's part of this entire discussion that really can't be left out is that people really want cruelty-free to be cut and dry. I'm one of those people, especially when we were talking about clean all the way through 2019. I was like, clean is not necessarily agreed upon in terms of its definition, but cruelty-free is. That's something where if it's like going from being vegan to being vegetarian. You're like, well, that'll be easy. After being vegan, being vegetarian's a breeze. I thought that that was going to be the way that cruelty-free went. Well, I still don't fully understand why some brands that are quote unquote in the gray area by a lot of these bloggers, like, what do they call, like Logical Harmony or Cruelty-Free Kitty or Ethical Elephant, they all have gray areas where they've contacted the company, and even though the company claims to have cruelty-free products and claims that their ingredients aren't tested on animals or anything like that, like they claim to meet all the marks, they just don't give a clear enough answer for that particular blogger or for the, they don't have anything to back it up, or they just keep repeating the same line that seems to kind of be a little bit slightly too vague. Like they won't say whether their ingredients were tested on animals at some point or something like that. And my understanding of that whole argument is that every ingredient at some point was tested on animals. It's just a matter of the fact that we have gotten to a point where all ingredients that are in most, whatever high percent of the products that we use have been tested and proven for so long that they don't need to be retested. It's just China that has kind of adhered to old laws in that sense of testing, the completed product once it has to come into the country sort of thing. Children are screaming outside. So that's what I guess confuses me is, there's brands like Fenty that people kind of seem to consider cruelty-free, but then there's Pat McGrath Labs, which basically lives in the exact same gray area, as does, I believe, Laura Mercier, correct me if I'm wrong, and they're considered not cruelty-free. And I, selfishly, would really like to use Pat McGrath and Laura Mercier, okay? That Laura Mercier that tinted, what is it? Tinted moisturizer, the SPF one, oil-free. It is the prettiest tinted moisturizer I've ever used. It was also like one of the first tinted moisturizers I've ever used, and it's just sad, I think it might have a chemical sunscreen in it though that I can't wear, but I'm not sure. Either way, wow, that is very cool tone and very berry, which makes sense because it's cool berry and summertime wine. So what else did I do? What else did I do to try and clarify how I'm going to feel on all of this stuff? Well, one of the first things that I did actually, as I even posted that prompt on my Instagram, kind of, what we call in the, the business world, running parallel, I messaged my beauty bunny. And I mean, she's not like a close friend of mine or anything like that, but I did, talk about her in that video and I credited her and everything. And we had kind of been in contact, her just kind of thanking me for the mention and stuff like that. And I just thanked her for doing her due diligence. She's just very thorough. I think everything was going really well until I put that blush on. It's a little bit crazy looking. So Jen at My Beauty Bunny, I reached out to her and I said, hey, So I'm sure people are bombarding you with this, but how are you feeling about the regulations set to take effect in China first of the year? I'm wanting to be more inclusive on my channel with more drugstore brands with better shade ranges, but I want to make sure I'm understanding what's happening first. And she said, seems like nothing major is going to happen until a big company tests the waters. Let me get you a link. This is why I'm so glad that I asked. So this is actually a full readout from Bunny Army, an account on Facebook that is, I guess, also an authority on this. So she says, this week, in a global virtual conference, Chinese authorities discussed China's new cosmetics regulations, which take effect January 1st. This, I feel like, I mean, granted, I don't know this person, but she seems like she really did the work here. Again, I'm not very good at getting in the weeds. This is the meat of it, okay? For pre-market animal testing, my main takeaway is this. At least initially, the use of alternative methods may be too costly for any but the largest corporations, and the risk of rejection may be high. The new regulations are complex, and as one authority noted, there is no official interpretation for now because it's new. It may take a Unilever, for example, to try this path first, blazing it for others. So I will go back to this in a second, but to me that sounds like it doesn't really matter what the laws are if no one chooses to actually utilize the new freedom that they have to not have to do so. They would have to take more money, reinvest it into a new pathway for testing that doesn't involve animal testing, and it's going to take a large company with big bucks to kind of do that, and they're going to probably have to do so voluntarily. It is not illegal, in other words, to test on animals. They're just now not required to. She says, here are my other takeaways. A general cosmetic can be exempt from pre-market animal testing under certain conditions. Those conditions are still being determined by NMPA, the agency writing the cosmetics regulations. Most cosmetics are general cosmetics. The exceptions are called special cosmetics, which are higher risk products like sunscreens and hair dyes. A company using an alternative method must include detailed evidence that the alternative gives results comparable to animal test results, evidence that is time consuming and costly to get. So it's like they're having to pave the way themselves in terms of interpreting what their way of testing that isn't animal testing is going to be. And so China is not saying, hey, here's a new process for you guys to use. We're gonna make it easy for you. They're saying you don't have to do it anymore, but we're really not gonna give you any pathways to do it a different way. So she says, yes, that's a major reason it may need a Unilever to try it first. Companies may face cost hurdles regardless of whether they use alternatives. China's approach, emphasized throughout the conference, is simplified procedures but enhanced requirements. The new regulations make it much simpler to file the necessary applications, and they set deadlines by which agencies must respond. However, new requirements are extensive and strict. These include full safety risk assessments of all cosmetic products and product interaction with product packaging, scientific documentation including human trials of any efficacy claim such as suitable for sensitive skin or tear-free, implementation of an adverse event monitoring system, subscription to an approved social monitoring site. She says your guess is as good as mine because she doesn't really know what that means, and other new requirements. Operators of e-commerce sites and shopping malls will be responsible for meeting the new regulations as they relate to products sold on their sites. I don't know what the specific regulations are, but I gathered from the presentation that the operators will be required to gather information from companies who sell on their sites and will be held liable for compliance. So it kind of passes the buck a little bit. That requirement that they are going to have to meet all these really, really high health standards is, you know, it begins at the manufacturer level, but it sounds like the buck doesn't stop until the person actually selling it, which I think is really interesting. Special cosmetics cannot be exempted from animal testing. Special cosmetics mentioned at the conference are sunscreens, hair dyes, antiperspirants, anti-hair loss products, anti-dandruff products, whitening or freckle remover products, anti-aging products, and anti-wrinkle products. So all of those, like, you know, your really strong actives and things like that, your retinols and stuff, that's still going to be tested on animals. Anti-wrinkle is pretty general and may not be accurate. The words are translated from Chinese to English, so much may be lost in translation. There may be others. These are just the ones I heard mentioned at the conference. For post-market testing, my takeaway is this. For general cosmetics, post-market testing is not a thing anymore. A company submits a notification along with the required documentation, which contains risk assessment, efficacy documentation, production details, labeling details, etc., and then can immediately market the product. There is no review of the documentation before the product is marketed. However, if China later finds any inconsistency between the documentation and what appears in the Chinese market, different ingredients label claims, large fines and possible banishment are automatic and apply to both the company and to those designated as the responsible persons for the product. Marketed products are monitored through the adverse event monitoring system, social monitoring site, and perhaps other systems. So while, again, what I just said about how they're not necessarily giving them a new pathway outside of animal testing, they are saying that if something gets a complaint against it that basically determines that the claims on the bottle are not what's actually happening in the product, like the formula changes or their claims can't be proven, then there is no like review process. They're not gonna like pull one off the shelf, take it to a lab, call it animal testing, call it post-market testing. They're just gonna pull the whole thing. It's no questions asked. The authorities had a broad consensus that this will be difficult initially, but as several emphasized, China believes that short-term pain leads to long-term gain in consumer safety. They have been researching and developing their foundation for this law since 2009, so clearly they have given it much thought. This is also reflected in the extreme complexity of the law and regulations. Even their experts said that they had to read it several times to really understand it. The complexity is also my excuse if I have something wrong here. So she's one human being. She was listening to, attending a virtual conference that was translated from Chinese to English, and she managed to get this much information. Amazing. We are eternally grateful to her. She says, and by the way, another emphasis of the conference was automatic punishment of all violations, whether or not intentional. Punishment was mentioned so many times I started feeling I must be guilty of something. So no pressure, but don't make any mistakes. She's kidding. It says, will China have cruelty-free cosmetics soon? The short answer, probably not soon, but the opening is there. Actually, I'm really glad that my cheeks are as pinky purple as they are because I decided to pull the Viseart Paris edit today. So, where does that leave my channel? I have a couple of large overarching thoughts. And my first major thought is we're staying cruelty-free here on my channel. And I didn't mean to bury the lead, but I did have some, I don't know, you could call them delusions, maybe just, big, lofty hopes that this was actually going to simplify things. The whole, China legislation thing was going to simplify things for us, but it just sounds like it's actually making it more complicated. And the short answer is no, not right now. In terms of freeing up other brands for us to try. However, I do still have every intention of trying to increase the inclusivity on my channel from the standpoint of shade ranges and price ranges, meaning I'm gonna try and do more drugstore stuff. And I know that that's not necessarily everybody's thing, but it does definitely appeal to a lot of people, not just because of budget, but also because of availability. If I start to use more e.l.f., more NYX, more CoverGirl, more trying to think of all the cruelty-free brands at the drugstore right now. Let me know down below any other ones that you guys think of that are cruelty-free at the drugstore, even where you are, even if it's not in the US, and I might be able to see if I can snag it, even if it's not like a big brand here or something like that. But even Essence is sitting there in that gray area list. And guys, I wanna know more, but at the same time, I feel like there are no clear answers on that particular topic, on the gray brands. And for that reason, I don't know, I want to re-examine a little bit of our mindfulness and our intentions in choosing the things that I review. So yes, I am trying to thread the needle right here and make an excuse to buy Pat McGrath or Laura Mercier, okay? And I mean, some people said, just keep an open mind on the gray area stuff and put a disclaimer at the beginning of your video, like not everybody considers this brand cruelty-free. Because actually, that kind of is the case with a lot of stuff. Like It Cosmetics, for example, is considered cruelty-free by most people, but their parent company isn't. That's just an example. And so there are people who draw the line in different places in terms of cruelty-free. And one of the things that I had to kind of draw a distinction with when I was talking about this in my stories was, yes, if I were a consumer and this wasn't my job, I might say, okay, well, it's very easy. I'm only going to buy these products. I'm going to shop for them really hard. These are the 3 things that I'm going to pick that are going to work for me or whatever. Not 3, it'd probably be like 30, but, and then, you know, I never have to really explore outside of that, but that's not what I do. My job is to review makeup. I want to be able to review things and make my reviews and my content as useful to you as possible, even if useful just means entertaining and fun. Which brings me to my next point. My next point is that this year has made makeup not that fun, okay? And it's not because of the conversations that I think are very, very valuable to have had. It is about the fact that I have landed in a place where I'm very frustrated by counting on a brand and liking a brand and promoting a brand on my channel, any brand, this isn't about a specific brand, or even the potential for this to happen, and then someone digs something up about how that brand did something that done wrong to them, and then I'm the a-hole. Or you're the a-hole for owning that product. And then we all end up looking at our stash at the end of the year and we're like, all of these products are evil. They're all evil, you know? And I don't think that that is, again, a conversation we shouldn't be having. I'm not gonna sit here with my fingers in my ears and be like, no, it's just makeup. It's just fun, guys. But I don't think that that responsibility always should fall on the consumer, okay? Yes, we have to hold them accountable. Yes, we have to vote with our dollars, but I wanna read you a comment. And this was just one human being commenting on one video, but I thought it was very valuable to share because it just makes you think, okay? And this was on my counting down my best and worst lip balms video. He says, I'm literally crying because I was hoping you wouldn't mention Glossier. It's the best I've tried so far too. As a random black guy who recently got into makeup over the past couple of years, I'm already exhausted. I just want to enjoy my future doing mango lip balm in peace because I genuinely don't care what a handful of ignorant people did in New York. They aren't Emily, and so for people they aren't Emily, and so for people to want to punish the entire brand for them is absurd. This is just one person's outlook. I really valued that insight though, because I am not and will never be a person of color, okay? And it's hard sometimes as someone who wakes up ignorant every day. I mean, there's just really no other way to say it. Like, I'm never gonna know. I can try, but I'm never gonna really know firsthand kind of thing. To get these kinds of insights from different people who have every right to be exhausted. And I totally understand just wanting to enjoy makeup and not feeling guilty because the company isn't what you thought that it was. I also have a lot of feelings. About brands getting more criticism because they claim to be trying. I just find that there are so many things that we find out about these companies and things that we will never know, guys. Things we will never know. And for those reasons, the things that do reach the surface that we do find out about are important to note, but I want to reclaim makeup in the name of the consumer, okay? On this channel, we can talk about the things that brands are doing wrong, and those conversations need to happen. Hourglass needs to be talked about. There are just a lot of these things that need to be discussed, but I think that the main reason that people come to my channel and the main reason that I started my channel, again, I'm not ostriching, I'm not sticking my head in the dirt here, but was to enjoy this stuff, okay? And you can decide with all the information that you have whether the money that you have in your hand has been properly earned by a brand and meets all of your standards and satisfaction. But I want to be mindful and have a reason based in all of the things that are important to you and important to me for buying and trying a product. Give the full spectrum of all of it without reading the ingredients like we did for everything in 2019. That was exhausting. But you know, try and offer as much as I know about these things, but we're not, I'm not gonna use the C word, okay? rhymes with schmansel. I'm not doing it. We're not doing that on my channel, okay? There are always going to be things that bubble to the surface. I'm not excusing it. I'm just saying that there is so much that we're never going to know, and trying to pretend that we're judge and jury, honestly, it's not even us. Them making us judge and jury is very unfair. That's all I'm trying to say. So we will do the best that we can, but I want to make this channel about having fun with makeup again. You know, I started by saying we are staying cruelty free. I'm not going to be like, in the name of fun, I'm going to spend all of my money at MAC. That's not my own personal means of spiritually bypassing the cruelty free status thing. But I do want to start and end the conversation with, did we enjoy ourselves? Are we still having fun? Because I feel like a lot of us are feeling very boxed in by trying to hold our entire makeup collection accountable. When, yes, the brands need to be held accountable, but you should still be able to enjoy yourself and enjoy makeup and have something in your life that doesn't feel like a friggin' chore all the time. So I'm not going to, you know, mute people in my comments or anything like that for, you know, voicing their concerns or making me aware of something that happened at a company, but we're also not going to let that be the thing that makes us stop enjoying makeup, okay? All right, let's do some glitter. Not even glitter, it's just this gorgeous, oh yes. Yeah, it's a really, really tough thing to talk about, because I think that anytime you talk about we need to take a step back from being angry, or we need to admit that we're exhausted, of course, someone who is very freshly angry and not exhausted can show up in my comments and be like, you're just spiritually bypassing my struggle, and brands need to be inclusive, and we can't back down from being angry because, you know, then we've lost the fight. And y'all, it is up to each and every individual one of us to be the positive force in our own lives and in everything that we're able to affect. But I also think that it is my responsibility to give people balance and not stress you guys the heck out. Okay, this just does not need to be another thing in your life that stresses you out. YouTube doesn't have to be a thing that stresses you out. And that's the beginning, middle, and end of it. So yeah, I do. I want to go into this year really trying to take the stress out of the situation. You guys know I always choose a word of the year, right? And a lot of y'all probably haven't been here since last year's word of the year, but I'll tell you what it was. It was unlearn. And it was based on the fact that I had loaded myself up with so much information that had maybe not really been all that helpful. Throughout 2019, I was like, oh, well, you know, I want to kind of unlearn all of these standards and all of these boundaries that I think I've unnecessarily put on myself, and, you know, placed myself in this tiny little box, and I'm feeling kind of strangled. Unlearn took on a whole new meaning for me this year, fam. It really, really did. I think it took on a whole new meaning for everybody. So yeah, my word of the year this year, and I decided it really, like, I think probably back in like July or something, but I was like, I'm really holding on and crossing my fingers for it to work out that the word of the year for 2021 is healing, okay? And I only say healing because it's a longer word. If I just said heal, it'd be weird. You know, unlearn, unlearning. Yes, I want 2021 to be a year, for me at least, of healing. We all have been through it this year. We're not here to compare struggles. That's not my point. I just think that everybody in their own way deserves some relief. And we all deserve to kind of cut each other some slack, or have others cut us some slack, you know? I still don't fully have my head around this palette. Like, it's just not quite as user-friendly as I expected it to be. The formula is. absolutely. But the color scheme is just, it's a little odd. The pink peach, the lilac purple, and then the like copper browns. I don't know. It's weird how like I'm able to make more sense of a purple and orange palette from Cosmetics than one that looks cohesive. Like that looks really cohesive, but it's actually harder to work with than you think. But yeah, guys, 2021 is going to contain some new information for you guys. We've got some big announcements coming around the bend. I'm not pregnant. No, we did that this year. I'm still adjusting. My child just turned 12 weeks old. I am not trying to get pregnant right now. No, thank you. But there's going to be some cool stuff happening that I will let you guys in on as soon as I am able to talk about it. Oh, my lips look normal again. I mean, I don't want to say normal. They're obviously bigger because that was the idea. But also, can you guys let me know completely honestly, do I look like Spock when I do that? My Botox was doing some weird stuff in the beginning and I'm still not sure whether I can get away with raising my eyebrows or whether she did it too high. If when I raise my eyebrows, do I look like Spock? Be honest, okay? Because it's all fixable. Sometimes Botox just is it's a little off, you know? It happens. I did buy 3 of these. Is Rosé Latte gonna bring it together? So, the one thing that I haven't gotten to say yet, that's the one, in this video, and it was because I really wanted to give it my full attention, is thank you. First of all, I want to thank the people who are part of my channel, you. Anyone watching this, anyone who has subscribed this year, anyone who has been subscribed for years, anyone who comments, anyone who watches and doesn't comment, anyone who DMs me or comments on Instagram or anything like that. I just want to thank you for letting me be part of your life. I've gotten so many of just the most overwhelmingly sweet comments from people this year just saying thank you for making content because it gave you something either to distract you or to ground you or to give you normalcy or to just, you know, inform you about makeup. That's kind of the whole idea, right? But, you know, give you guys some place that you feel like you can continue to come back to that's, you know, at least some kind of rhythm in your life. I have no idea. It's a rhythm in my life. And the fact that people come and watch my videos gives me a purpose. It's the coolest thing in the world. It is more than I would have hoped for going into this however many years ago. Just the fact that, like I've said a few videos ago, I always thought that there was a threshold that I would hit on my channel where I would reach so many people or I would get so many subscribers that the conversation would shift from considering me a person to considering me some kind of like bulletproof entertainer and nobody saying anything nice. And people feeling like it was open season on my feelings. And I don't know if that threshold does exist, but I am nowhere near it. And I am grateful for the fact that even as I continue to grow on this platform, you guys just keep giving me more and new and better reasons to keep creating for you. And that literally gives me purpose in life. So thank you so much. It is the perfect melding of my Aries and my Cancer rising. Like Aries, I want to be a star. Cancer, I want to help people. Like it's actually the best thing in the world. So thank you for that. I also want to thank everybody who is a frontline worker or a first responder or an essential worker, anybody who has had to be out in this or has lost a family member, or who has tried their best and still gotten sick, or who has just tried their best and stayed home all year and it has sucked and it has made you miserable, and who have lost things because of all the things that we had to give up this year. And anybody who felt like they had to suppress their own joy and their own wins because they didn't want to toot their own horn in the face of everything else sucking for everybody. Like there are so many different reasons that we all have felt a sense of loss and a sense of grief this year, and all of them are valid, big and small. And I just want to thank the people who have put themselves last. Things that I don't know if I would ever even be capable of. I was watching 60 Minutes and they were interviewing the team of people who developed the initial vaccine. And these people, it's a personality type. They're like, I'm going to solve this. I'm going to fix this. This is my mission. I will not stop until I have beaten this. And I'm just so grateful that there are people out there in the world like that, because there are so many more people who are going to live because of that. I had a baby in a hospital with a mask on. I gave birth with a mask on, you know? And there are all these brave people surrounding me, doing their jobs and just doing a duty to humanity. And I'm just overwhelmed with gratitude for those people, and for all of you guys. So that is my check-in for the end of the year for 2020. There is still, I'm going to do the trends I want to leave in 2020 video, so that'll probably be the next one. But this was a bunch of stuff that I felt like I'd been getting asked about. I wanted to go ahead and put it in a video for you guys. We're staying cruelty-free. Let me know your thoughts on the gray area brands and whether you have like really strong feelings one way or the other. You guys know that at the end of the day, my content is about making it useful for you. So let me know. Anyway, guys, I love you. I really do. Thank you so much for watching and for continuing to watch and for subscribing. If you did enjoy this, give it a thumbs up. If you want to keep hanging out with me on this channel and you're not already subscribed, hit the button down below and subscribe. I would love it if you guys did. I hope that you all had a really nice holiday, and I hope that you have a happy new year. I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.